This is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present. I'm Tim Kurt.
And I'm Roland Pulis.
And today's episode is all about WrestleMania 18, which took place on March 17th, 2002. So we are almost to the 18th anniversary of that pay-per-view.
Yeah, this coming Tuesday, this will drop on Saturday the 14th. So this coming Tuesday is going to be the exact 18-year anniversary of the show. Took place in Toronto.
Yes.
Very lively crowd, which, I mean, it should be for WrestleMania, but it was nice. It was nice to see, to go back and watch. There was a lot of action on this. This might have been one of the ones that was one of the first WrestleManias where they lengthened it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, there's
a lot to unpack here.
There's 11 matches on the card and then one match on Heat, so 12 matches total. Like you said about the crowd, though, Canadian crowds typically are a little bit more rambunctious. I guess would be the right word.
Well, especially if you think back to Bret Hart and that scene when back when right before the Attitude Era, it was the same thing. It was. You had Bret Hart, who would be a heel anywhere else, was beloved in Canada. I mean, he could pretty much hit the Canadian Prime Minister, and they'd still be like, "Oh, it's okay." But
yeah.
So it's the same thing with the Monday after, pay-per-views now. With Monday Night Raw, those Mondays are usually the crowd's usually pretty jacked up. I think probably because they're still in the city most times from where they had the big show, especially WrestleMania. And speaking of that, it should be interesting to see what they do with WrestleMania.
Yeah, with the whole coronavirus situation, wondering, if they're going to cancel WrestleMania or not. As of right now, there hasn't been a word on that.
Yeah, they're going to be doing SmackDown. We're recording Friday evening, so we'll be doing, SmackDown Friday night from the Performance Center.
Yeah, and I also heard that Raw will also be from the Performance Center as well. So that, it should be interesting. This whole coronavirus basically canceling every sports event that's currently going on or
either canceling or postponing.
Postponing,
the Masters was just postponed.
Yeah, Masters.
I mean, I know we're a little off topic, but I mean it's topical anyways to at least discuss what's going on. I mean, we're going to do another WrestleMania next week, WrestleMania 10. And we were building up to this year's WrestleMania, which may not happen now.
It may not happen.
So we might have to throw an audible here in a couple of weeks, but we'll see what happens. Bear with us. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out, as we always do. All right, well, let's get talking about WrestleMania 18 here. I guess it's not really a dark match. The match on Heat was a 6-man tag match. Albert, Rikishi, and Scotty 2 Hotty getting a win over, listen to this team, Lance Storm, Mr. Perfect, and Test.
There's a lot of dead folk in there.
Yeah.
Well, not a lot, but a decent amount. And, it's weird that it's 2/3 of Too Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then Albert, Matt Bloom.
Yep.
I don't know if he's definitely not Grandmaster Sexay, put it that way. And then you have Lance Storm, Mr. Personality.
Yep.
Mr. Perfect, who arguably one of the best technical wrestlers of all time.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Test, who would, probably would have had a bigger role had he not died suddenly at, I think he was 36 or something.
He was really young.
He was really young.
Yeah.
He might not even been 36. Either way, he was way young. He died a long time ago, in the business. But yeah, it's a weird mismatch of and Jacqueline was a special referee.
Yep. So throw that in there.
So yeah, interesting Heat match. It lasted 3 minutes for seven competitors altogether, counting Jacqueline. So
this match kind of just feels like just kind of thrown together so some of these people get a payday.
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we're going to get to the actual WrestleMania show now. Our opening match was Rob Van Dam versus William Regal, RVD getting a win. This was a singles match for the Intercontinental title in about 6 minutes and 19 seconds. To me, I think it was a good opener for the show. If you're going to open the show, you want to do it with two decent workers, which RVD and William Regal obviously are. I thought this match actually probably could have went a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think William Regal is often overlooked at the performer that he was based on the fact that he was more of a technical wrestler. Mm-hmm. But he was very good at what he did. And I don't, like I said, I'm not saying he was... The Rock, but I mean, for a guy who, in that era, he was one of the most technical sound wrestlers, and like I said, maybe because he didn't really have much of a personality. I mean, you found that out when he became the general manager for a while, and it's kind of like Kane, same kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You see personalities of these guys, but William Regal, and then of course, RVD is one of the best high flyers, again, arguably of all time for some of the stuff he would do. But yeah, no, it was a good way to start the pay-per-view. I don't really know, looking at the card, I don't really know what other match would be a good starter. I mean, maybe the Kane-Kurt Angle match would have been a good way to start too. But I mean, other than that, I couldn't have picked a better match, I don't think, to start the pay-per-view.
Absolutely. Moving right along to our second match. This was a singles match for the European title. That's a title from the past year.
Yeah.
DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, getting a win over Christian in about just over 6 minutes. DDP doing his Positively Page gimmick here.
Yeah, I remember we watched this one together, actually.
Yep.
And I remember at the end, Diamond Dallas Page said, he was glad that Christian didn't throw a hissy fit.
Yep.
He took it well, and then, of course, Christian throws the hissy fit in the middle of the ring. It's one of those things where it was kind of just there. I get it. It's filler, but, Diamond Dallas Page, for a guy that started so late in his career, wrestling-wise, age-wise.
35, I believe, is when he started.
He had a great career for a guy that started so late.
Yeah, Hall of Famer. He wrestled a couple weeks ago on Dynamite at age, I think, 63.
Yeah, and he was doing that the six-man tag there.
Yeah,
on the boat.
Yep.
Or right before they went on the boat. It was a week before that. And then Christian, I'm actually surprised that with the Edge storyline, he didn't pop up.
Yeah.
I thought for sure he would have. I mean, he's still
so.
with the company, off and on with the backstage show and some of the pre-show. So it would have been a perfect way to prolong Edge coming back. Mm-hmm. And I'm surprised, they used Matt Hardy twice. So maybe that was, obviously they wrote him off TV that way. But it was surprising that Christian didn't get involved. Maybe he will. There's still some more weeks to go. Maybe he will show up. Maybe it'll be, that right now, that has to be one of the more gripping storylines. Again, a little off topic, but the Edge Randy Orton thing is like white hot right now.
Absolutely. Well, because it's a little bit edgier than what they've been doing recently.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended there.
It's and like I said, Christian, for what he's been, it's unfortunate that the head injuries shortened his career. Mm-hmm. No doubt, both these guys Hall of Fame talent wrestlers. Christian isn't in yet, but he should be.
He should be.
And he will be.
Then.
So, what you're getting with those two guys.
Our next match was a match for the hardcore title. Now, it was Maven and Goldust was the match, but remember, this was back in the era where the hardcore title was defended 24/7, similar to the 24/7 championship they have now.
Yeah, some of you younger fans, think of the 24/7 championship, but with weapons.
With weapons, yes.
That's pretty much the gimmick there.
So the match was Maven, who was the first winner of Tough Enough, and Goldust.
Yes, that Maven. Anyways.
But there was a spot in there where they both hit each other with a trash can lid, and Spike Dudley actually comes to the ring and pins Maven, and he's the hardcore title. And the hardcore title would flip-flop between many superstars, including Molly Holly.
The Hurricane. They had that one thing where the Hurricane was backstage with Godfather's ladies.
Yes.
And they had an interesting little segment there, and then he scurried off. And it's kind of literally like what R-Truth does now.
Yeah.
It was the same kind of thing just 18 years ago. So it was entertaining.
And that's what I was just about to say. This match was here just for entertainment purposes. Wasn't going to be a 5-star match or anything like that. It was just
but it set the ball rolling for all the stuff to happen throughout the night.
Absolutely.
Which, like I said, for what it was entertaining. It was to give people time to you think of the entrance ramp was like 300 yards long.
I know.
So you figure when they cut away from a match and they have that segment, you're letting some of the guys clear out the ring, the referee. There could be different things they need to set up for the next match. Whatever it is, it's a filler, and it was entertaining.
Absolutely. And at the end of the night, Maven actually did retain his title, so he left the.
So the joke is on everybody else.
That's right. All right. Moving right along, we have a singles match here. Kurt Angle getting a win over Kane in just under 11 minutes.
This is where the pay-per-view for me started picking up again.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to notice, definitely as we go through the star power in this match, a lot of Hall of Famers, a lot of future Hall of Famers that we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, I mean, if you would think, honestly, those first 3 matches would have been on a pre-show, nowadays. And then you figured from this match on would have been the main card if I would say the way they formatted it. It's kind of how it went because, the first hour was a little more gaga-y type stuff, and then they went on to, I said, you look back at Kurt Angle, they mentioned during the match, he won every major singles title in the first 2 years of his career.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Kurt Angle, again, started off, like a house on fire, and you got Kane with fire. So, but no, it was a great match. It
was a good match, absolutely. I think, if I remember correctly, Kurt Angle used the belt to defeat Kane. He cheated to win.
Yeah, he foot on the ropes is what it was.
Okay.
He rolled him up. So originally, Kane choke slams Kurt Angle, but he's next to the ropes. Kurt Angle puts his hands on the ropes. Mm-hmm. And then, later on in the match, it was a weird, sloppy kind of even Jim Ross alluded to it, that he didn't know if Kane's shoulders were even down for 3.
Yeah.
It was a weird, the way the referee was and the way Kurt was, and so it was sloppy at the end. I wish they'd figured out a little bit better way to do it, and I don't know what, obviously, it was 18 years ago, so I don't know if they meant, obviously they meant to have him cheat to win, but, maybe Kane sensed that, Kurt wasn't on the ropes, so he was kicking out on purpose. It seemed like he kicked out before it was
it did definitely.
It was weird, but yeah, I mean, it was, the match itself, kind of sullied a little bit by that finish, but it was a great match.
It was a great match, yeah. This was another match, I think, that could have opened the show as well.
Yeah, like I said, we looked at the card, that's the other match that stuck out to me that, for someone, especially Kane was jacked here. He was in great. I mean, he's still in good shape now for early 50s.
Yep, and being a mayor.
Well, yeah, the mayor, Knox County. I actually just listened to his audiobook.
Oh, really?
This past week. It's on Audible. Cheap plug there, Mayor Kane. And it was a good book. But yeah, it's funny to look back, like I said, because Kane, this is when he was starting to transition away from the mask almost. You see there was less covering. His mask was getting smaller. It was the precursor to him losing the mask altogether. You could see more facial expression because there was less mask. Kane at this time, Kurt Angle, he kept up with Kurt Angle.
Absolutely.
And that's impressive for someone who's, 6'10", 325 or whatever it was. So, yeah, it was a good match.
Yeah, definitely. And then we move along. We see the Undertaker in the American Badass or Big Evil gimmick.
Oh, not before we get into this, I also wanted to point out that I thought it was ironically very comedic that Kurt Angle was calling himself the Big Red, White, and Blue Machine. Also, I wanted to point. I thought that was hilarious.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it just popped into my head that like that. When I first heard it, I was like, "What?" And then I go, "Oh, I get it now." Yeah, he was the Big Red, White, and Blue Machine, and Kane was the Big Red Machine. So yeah, it was a play on words, but again, for what it was a really good match. And back to the Undertaker and Ric Flair.
Yep, Undertaker, Ric Flair, no disqualification match with just under 19 minutes. I thought this was a great match. Ric Flair doing his typical bleeding where he's all crimson mask.
To quote Jim Ross, like a stuck pig.
Yeah, so like stuck pig.
Yeah.
But I thought they did as well as they could with this match. I thought it was really done. I mean, a predictable finish. The Undertaker going to go over against Ric Flair. The storyline here is Ric Flair was co-owner of the World Wrestling Federation, but he had to give up his duties to fight this match.
Yeah.
The Undertaker was attacking his son and Arn Anderson.
Well, and what started that all together was Undertaker tried to use a lead pipe in a match, and Ric Flair came out and stopped it and actually ended up hitting him with it. And then Undertaker, pronouns pal, the Undertaker confronts Ric Flair about it, and Ric Flair says, "I'm just being a man. Like,
yeah.
You don't need to win that way." And then, Undertaker challenged him, and Flair said no. And I remember the segment of Arn Anderson standing there. Flair said, "No, I'm not fighting you." And Undertaker said, "Well, you know what? I'm going to make it so you'll have to." And he beats up Arn Anderson. He beats up David Flair, and finally he gets Rick to do what he had to do and stand up for his friends. And Arn Anderson, his best friend, and his son, his 23-year-old son, David Flair at the time. And storytelling 101 here.
Perfect.
This match, for what it wasn't a physical type, it was a physical match, but it wasn't this 5-star wrestling match. Story-wise, this was like 20 stars.
Absolutely.
It was great.
Because it made sense. It made sense why they were fighting each other. There was an actual story behind it.
Yep.
It was the conclusion. Like these matches, and you don't understand why they're wrestling each other.
Yeah.
But here you had a storyline. You had a reason why they're going.
Prime example of that match on Heat. You get 6 guys just thrown together for a match. This was the polar opposite. This told an amazing story. There was a spot in the match where Arn Anderson delivers a spine buster. The match, for what it was, told a great story. Flair, like you said, had to be in mid to late 50s. He's 70, 71, 72 now or whatever.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, he had to have been in, it was 18 years, so he had to have been at least mid 50s, anyways.
It's an underrated Undertaker WrestleMania match. Now, this one doesn't get talked a lot about at all. You think of the Shawn Michaels matches and his feud with Triple H and stuff like this, but this one, I think, was one of his better ones.
And the Undertaker picked Ric Flair for this match. They going into WrestleMania, they didn't know what to do with the Undertaker, and the Undertaker said, I'd like to fight Flair. Flair had just come over from WCW, recently, and then had the storyline with Vince McMahon and all that stuff. And Undertaker was kind of in Vince's pocket at the time. And like I said, storytelling 101. If I had to, without even going through the rest of this card, if I had to pick one match from that, watch that match. Because the storytelling was just amazing in that match.
Absolutely.
And Jerry the King Lawler kept saying how the Undertaker had a scratch. You know,
I know.
it was a scratch. His name is red as a stop sign.
Yep.
And then, you know, Flair had the thing. So I just thought, you know, storytelling wise, it's hard to talk about the area. That match too with what, you know, obviously Jerry Lawler being for the Undertaker being the heel, and, you know, obviously JR being the. This was after the attempt with the fake Diesel and Razor Ramon and tried to make JR heel.
Yeah, I know.
So
that didn't go over too well.
JR was back being good.
Yep.
Storytelling
behind it, it was a little underwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes along with the Diamond 6-minute kind of filler match. From like the two gamers, Edge being relevant now. I mean, Booker T will be in the business somehow until he dies.
Yeah,
he's always doing something.
Yep.
And it's interesting to look back at this match like that it can a lot more. And you know, the storyline was that, you know, Edge was pretty much saying that Booker T was dumb. It's what the basis of the storyline was. They had the promo before the match with Michael Cole interviewing Booker T. He's wearing a pair of glasses. He's like, I have glasses. I'm smart. See, and it's like, you know, it's not. You could tell they were grasping at straws. They were trying to, you know, make a program out of it.
Yeah. They mentioned the Weakest Link appearance, which was, for those of you who don't know, was a game show back in the early 2000s.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye. But yeah, so I mean, it's like I said, it made sense for that. But it's too bad they didn't have a little more time because I mean, they're two great performers.
All right, in our next match here, we have Stone Cold Steve Austin getting a win over Scott Hall with Kevin Nash by his side, representing the NWO. This match went just under 10 minutes. Lots of outside interference by Kevin Nash here.
All right, so I'm gonna set the table here for anybody that hasn't seen this. You know, Hall comes out, points, Nash comes out with him, but you know, they're saying from the get-go it's a glorified handicap match, which is what it was. So Austin hits the stunner on Hall. Kevin Nash is on the wrong side of the ring to start. So he comes barrel-assing around the ring. I mean, I've never seen Nash move that quick. To pull referee Tim White out, he decks him. Disqualification number 1. Nope, we keep going. So then Jack Doan, the replacement referee, comes sliding in, probably the best slide I've ever seen in my life, almost all the way across the ring, to only have Kevin Nash drop an elbow on him. Disqualification number 2?
Nope.
No, we keep going. To the point where like 27 referees, I don't even know if they were all actual referees, but there was a ton of referees. They don't come out to disqualify and end the match. They come out to get Kevin Nash away from ringside.
To remove him.
Only to literally have then, you know, more shenanigans of referees getting, you know, I mean, Tim rolling around like he got shot in the ring, and it's just if you go back to this time, you know, Stone Cold. This is when Stone Cold was starting to be unhappy too with his position.
Yep.
You know, he didn't want to face Scott Hall.
Yeah.
And he's been on record and say that he didn't. You know, he felt like, you know, he could have done more with somebody else. Not that he didn't like Scott Hall, or he just didn't see the point. You know, when you have The Rock facing Hogan. You know, he felt like he got the short straw, which, I mean, how can you not? If somebody else is facing Hulk Hogan, you get Scott Hall. Again, no offense to Scott Hall.
Yeah.
But he's not Hulk Hogan. So this is when Austin, you know, you could tell, I'm not going to say he mailed it in, but he wasn't quite as invested as he should have been, probably because he was already a little bit PO'd that this is what he got relegated to in his mind. I mean, he's even said over the years that he should have handled it better. You know, he was a little hot-headed then. He walks away and walked out of the company a couple times. And it wasn't a terrible match. A lot of gaga, like you said, with the referees. But, you know, typical Stone Cold match. He hit about 27 stunners.
Yep, absolutely.
And, you know, that's how he ended the match. He hit a stunner and then a second one right in a row where Hall popped straight up, and the second one he dropped him, and that was it.
Scott Hall did sell the stunner really well.
Scott Hall sells a stunner almost as good as The Rock does.
Yeah.
Like when The Rock gets hit with a stunner and he rolls around and ends up his feet on the ropes. Yeah. Like, you know, I mean, Shawn Michaels does it too sometimes. You know, if you look back at some of the matches when he takes a stunner, you know, or when Shawn Michaels, speaking of NWO and stuff, when he sold the leg drop and the big boot to Hogan.
Yep.
he takes the big boot and he bounces off the mat. Looks like Kurt Angle dancing, falls over, takes the leg. You know, it's obviously you're overselling at that point. But I mean, Hall did what he could do, and it was nice to see. You know, this is before he really started deteriorating again. He'd cleaned himself up a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Before, I mean, he's clean now thanks to, you know,
he
BDP.
looked pretty good. They just made a reunion on SmackDown a couple weeks ago or last week. Scott Hall looked pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, they all, you know, in that, you know, you got to start the promo off that way. You have to. I mean, the fans are waiting for it.
Yep.
You know, and it was interesting to see the turnaround he had just in that little time, because when he left WCW, he was starting to be in rough shape too. So he looked really good. They had a pretty good match. You know, it's unfortunate to see what happened, you know, after this, when he ends up getting himself in trouble and getting fired, and goes down the rabbit hole, and luckily he emerged. Like I said, thanks to DDP helping him out, and Jake Roberts, who again was on AEW the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's awesome what DDP's done. Again, we're speaking about Diamond Dallas Page, but I always liked Scott Hall, even when he's Razor Ramon. I like the character. So
one of the more underrated workers. In the business,
I mean, he's probably one of the most. One of the names that comes up that never won the big belt in WWF.
Yes, but I don't think he needed it.
No,
really.
But him and Mr. Perfect. There's certain guys that you're like, wow,
Roddy Piper.
Yeah, that never won the WWE Championship. He's one of those guys.
Absolutely. All right, moving right along, we have a 4 corners elimination tag match for the WWF tag team titles. We have Billy and Chuck getting a win over the APA, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys. Lots of Hall of Famers in there. The APA, with JBL going in this year, they're going to be both in there. Dudley Boys are in there. Hardy Boys will be eventually. Billy Gunn's in there through DX. Chuck Palumbo, I'm sorry, you're not going to make it.
You are the weakest link. Goodbye. No offense to Chuck Palumbo.
No offense to Chuck Palumbo.
He is the, odd man out, literally. If you had to pick somebody. Short straw. Sorry,
but
Chuck.
He gets the win here. He beats all these guys. So, the match, I think a little bit for filler purposes, I think. It was a decent match. It wasn't a spectacular match, especially given the talent in the ring here. But I thought it was a decent tag team match. I mean, there's not a lot you can do when there's that many bodies in the ring at once.
No, and at that point, too, the fans are already waiting for Rock Hogan.
Yeah.
They've been there for like 3 hours at this point.
Absolutely.
And they're like, oh, cool, but like, let's go. Like, we know what's coming, because you have Rock and Hogan, you still have the Triple H Jericho, so there's stuff coming. So no offense to these guys, but the fans weren't as invested, I think, at this point. Still wasn't a terrible match. Like you said, it was what it was.
Yeah.
But, it's one of those things, too, like the first match where you're just kind of putting guys in there to get them a payday.
Absolutely.
And it's a good way to do it. I get it with tag team titles and stuff, but, again, it was what it was. It wasn't going to be a 5-star match by any means. I mean, but there's a lot of Hall of Famers, like you said, in that grouping.
Well, speaking of Hall of Famers, let's talk about what really when you talk about WrestleMania 18. This is what everybody remembers: The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, or Hollywood Hulk Hogan here. Hollywood Hulk Hogan in the NWO at this point. This match went 16 minutes 23 seconds. The Rock getting the win. But the match was made by the crowd in this match.
Right. You mean to tell me that this was the match everybody remembers? Nobody remembers the Maven Goldust match?
Not really. No.
Yeah, no.
If you stop the pay-per-view after match number 2 or 3.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. No. This is what they were building. To me, I don't know why this wasn't the main event.
There's been a lot of discussion about that,
and I know nowadays they don't really care what title. They have 2 titles now, so I mean, they had the Undisputed Championship then, so they still had 2 titles, but they were together.
Yeah.
I don't know how having Rock and Austin and Triple H, all these guys on the card, like named how I don't know how you decide. It had to have been just the belt alone that they put last, because the Triple H Jericho match, I'm not saying it was bad, but it wasn't Rock and Hogan.
No. But like I said, I mean, I think this match would have been the match itself, just if you take the crowd out of it, was a decent match. It wasn't anything. It wasn't going to be a 5-star technical match. It was your typical Hulk Hogan match.
Well, I mean, how many miles are on Hogan at this point, too?
Absolutely. But you add the element of the crowd, where the crowd's chanting. They turned Hulk Hogan face here. Hogan was the heel going into this match, and they had to flip-flop roles because the crowd was so behind Hogan here. And it was just amazing how much the crowd affected the match, and how both performers kind of adjusted to that and made do with what they were given.
Well, and they both, they're both professionals, so they knew, when the crowd was hot, what to do. They didn't rush the action. They took the pops the crowd were giving them. And yeah, like you said, at one point when they're duking it out, they're booing The Rock.
Yeah,
they're booing him out of the building.
Absolutely,
you would have thought it was Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. Honestly, like the type of pop that there was, like you said, I mean, I don't know. It makes me wonder if the WWF at the time had a better plan for the NWO, if this was going to be it, if Hogan was, because I mean, like you said, the crowd turned Hogan from heel to babyface that night, and then the WWF, there's nothing to do about it. I mean,
no, they rolled with it. I mean, and good for them to capitalize on it.
Well, I mean, how can you
not though?
Right at that point, I don't know how you're given no other choice. But I mean, you've seen him do stupid stuff, past and present.
No.
Because Vince thinks it's a great idea, pal. And it was the smart move to say, okay. I mean, obviously, the nice thing was they didn't make Rock a heel either. They made The Rock, kind of bring Hogan with him. Like, hey, you still got it. Like, you should be a good guy. Screw the NWO. And that's how they kind of pulled them out.
I wonder if the finish where Rock and Hogan shake the hands and the NWO comes out and kind of confronts Hogan about that, I wonder if that was planned all along or if that was something they came up with on the fly.
Yeah, I could very easily see that being something where they're scrambling at gorilla position to be like, hey, we need you guys to go back out.
Yeah.
Or maybe they were planned to beat up The Rock. Who knows?
Who knows?
Maybe it was planned where they were going to attack him no matter what happened.
Yeah.
Because they were upset that they lost to Austin earlier in the night anyways. So... it's interesting it would be nice to hear from, maybe, I don't know if Bruce Pritchard or any of them have covered this WrestleMania or this match, but I mean, somebody like that with insider information would be nice to hear their take on it if they remember how exactly it was supposed to be originally.
Yeah. Definitely go out the Undertaker Flair match, and then go ahead and watch this match, Rock and Hollywood Hogan.
Yeah, I mean, this is what you're here for, anyways.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
If you have a half hour to spend or so, watch those two matches.
Absolutely,
because they're definitely. And like I said, if you have a little more time, we're gonna get to the last match. But I mean, how can you go wrong with Triple H Jericho?
Nope, for the belt, can't go wrong with that.
No.
Before that, though, we do have one match here to talk about. We have a triple threat match for the women's title. We have Jazz, who's the champion, getting a win over Lita and Trish Stratus, two Hall of Famers here. Women's wrestling in this era, not what it is today. This was your typical let me up match. It's a way to get the crowd to kind of calm down after the emotion Rock Hogan match.
Oh yeah, I mean you imagine being the tag team match or being this match and having to go out before or after Rock
this
Hogan.
match. Yeah, you're in a tough spot.
Well, it's like the Hell in the Cell with Mankind and the Undertaker. It was Kane and Austin that followed that. Nobody remembers that Kane won his first title there.
No.
Because, Mick Foley just died twice, during the match. And, nobody remembers that. I mean, that was when Kane won, his title. He only had it for a night. He gave it back to Austin the next night on Raw. But, nobody remembers that. And that's the same thing. Even, you have good performers in that match, but no one probably cared.
Nobody cared.
At that point.
No. But we get to our main event here. You have Triple H getting a win over Chris Jericho, who's coming in as a champion with Stephanie McMahon. That's a little interesting nugget there.
Yeah.
This was a singles match for the undisputed title. Went about 18 minutes, 41 seconds. Triple H getting a win and becoming the new undisputed title champion.
Shocker that the Triple H match was last, and it was the longest match on the card. Minus the Ric Flair Undertaker match.
Yep, just by a couple of seconds there.
So, shocker. I mean, I'm not complaining because I'm a Triple H fan.
Me too.
But, in that era, you have two guys that are still going today. I mean, Jericho, in AEW, I don't think AEW... I mean, AEW would have been big no matter what, but I think having Jericho brings in a more casual fan because they're like, holy crap, Jericho's still wrestling?
Yeah.
What's he, 100? And then they just, oh, wow, I know that guy. Mm-hmm. So it helps for the casual fan. And, of course, Triple H, I mean, still wrestles, it seems like a couple times a year. I mean, I don't think we're going to see him at WrestleMania this year, even if they have it. I don't think they had any storyline for him.
No, it doesn't seem like...
Which they don't need him. They have, have Cena and they have... the Undertaker. And
Goldberg.
Yeah. Yeah, Goldberg.
Let's not talk about that
let's not go there because we'll have a 60-minute podcast here. But I think, honestly... one of my favorite, definitely in my top 5 of WrestleManias. This show. Yeah,
I agree. There's just because the crowd made it, so much talent, so many Hall of Famers on the card. It's definitely one of the better WrestleManias. And they kind of had a streak going with WrestleMania 17 the year before this was really good too.
Yeah.
So going on with WrestleMania 18 here, I would agree. Probably definitely top 5. Definitely top 10 WrestleMania.
I would give it an 8 out of 10.
I'm
usually a little bit lower than you, so for me to give it an 8, that is saying something.
I would kind of give it the same rating. Yeah. So definitely.
Even the matches that weren't really short were still good matches.
They were good matches.
They were good matches.
There wasn't any match that I was dreading or it was tough for me to get through.
They were smart too. The ones that were kind of filler were short matches. I mean, but they had good talent, so.
Definitely, yeah. So go out of your way, if you can watch the whole thing. We do recommend the Undertaker Ric Flair match as well as the Rock Hogan match.
And like I said, the Jericho Triple H match. If you have an hour you want to kill, watch those 3.
Watch those 3 matches. Definitely a good pay-per-view there. Speaking of WrestleMania, we're going to continue the WrestleMania theme next week when we're going to talk about WrestleMania 10. That will be one day past the 26th anniversary of that show.
And that is the infamous Shawn Michaels went out and had a match with a ladder.
Yes, with
sorry, Scott Hall, but
yeah.
and Shawn Michaels always defends that, saying Scott Hall made the match too, but it was for all intents and purposes Shawn Michaels having a match with a ladder.
So we'll get into that and much more next week with WrestleMania 10. Until then, though, I'm Tim Kirk,
And I'm Roland Fulis,
and this is Wrestling with Wrestling's Past and Present.